There are many races in One Piece, both natural as far as we know, and artificial, although I will only be going over the natural ones here, but I might make a video on the artificial ones in the future if there is interest. If you're really just interested in a list of all the races, you could probably just look at the chapters for a good idea, or at least skip ahead, because I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here. Before that though, I just want to go over how this will be organized in case you're worried about spoilers. I'll try to list all of the races in the order in which they appear, or rather when we actually get real detail on them. So when you get to the race most recently mentioned for you and you're worried about what I'll call lore spoilers, feel free to skip ahead or leave the video. And of course, with a lot of races comes a lot of racism. A major theme of the story. In the best way possible, I promise. Although I won't be covering that too much in this video, besides the fact that many believe racism to be the reason the tribes are even considered by many to be different races or even species. You know, I probably shouldn't be saying racism so many times right at the beginning of the video. Oh well, it's not like I'll be monetizing this anyways anytime soon, and it probably wouldn't get many views regardless, so whatever. But like I said, many people believe most or all of the different races, or tribes as they're often called, to be just humans, and are simply labeled as a different or even inferior species by the bubbleheads that rule the world. Kinda. I do like that idea, but I don't like the main argument that they tend to use as definitive proof. You see, one way to define a species is to say that if a male and a female can mate and produce fertile, viable offspring, they are the same species. And because there exists a large mother who got especially busy, we know that normal humans, if you really want to call her that, can produce viable offspring with most if not all of the other races. And therefore, they must be the same species. Well, besides the fact that her only confirmed grandchild is 100% human, and all of the complications of that definition with other modes of reproduction, especially non-animal species, that definition would kind of make all big cats the same species. Kinda. For example, while the males are sterile, female ligers and tigons are fertile, and I believe that is the case for most if not all big cat hybrids, including hybrids of hybrids like Ly-tigons, Ty-tigons, Ty-ligers, and Ly-ligers. I think they probably stopped there because the names are already getting kinda cumbersome. Anyways, my point is that it's not that simple, and almost everyone who brings up that point is not qualified to really talk about that, including myself, so I'll shut up and get on with the video. As I mentioned twice in the past 2 minutes that probably felt like 2 hours, there are many races in the world of One Piece. But I'm very tired and I can't think of another segue. It's not even a segue, it's more of an opener? I don't know, and it doesn't really matter. The most prevalent of these races, whether for natural reasons or through political domination, are deemed to be humans. Those individuals carrying the label human are also incredibly diverse, and call most of the land on the planet home. The wiki lists 4 types of human: the cont'd tribe, the Kuja tribe, the Torino tribe, and the world nobles. Why they chose those groups to give distinct entries to, including full dedicated pages, I have no idea. 2 of them were only ever really shown in cover stories. If you've seen any One Piece, you probably know that the humans vary greatly in size, shape, skin color, hair color, and exaggerated facial features. But there are other things that many have that make you wonder if they really are human at all, which I think is better evidence of the intermingling of races for generations without significant adverse health effects than large frisky lady. Those horns? Yeah, I used to think that it was just like a fashion statement too. But keeping that hairstyle for 24 years and gradually changing the size of the horns as you grow bigger would be some intense commitment. Most of the especially unusual traits that you see in the humans of the One Piece world could also just be lesser, diluted traits of the other races, especially those traits that show up on multiple occasions, such as horns. One exception to this that I can think of is the long nose. And the red nose, but that doesn't really show up more than once. But the long nose could very well have been from what was once a long nose tribe that was either just included in humans or completely intermingled over time because the nose is kind of useful. Guessing there's probably quite a bit of art about that. The trait that most people notice and find hard to believe doesn't make them another race, though, is the variety of sizes they come in. That totally normal, frisky old lady I mentioned a few times now? Just shy of 29 feet, or 8.8 meters. Here she is, at age 5, with her parents, or rather her father and some woman. Maybe stepmother, or father's mistress. If that were her mother, she'd be dead. But she's not dead, so I don't think it's her mother. I was going to segue into a different race from that, but then I remembered that fishmen were introduced in the East Blue. Fishmen, many times stronger than humans on average, capable of swimming very quickly while still being agile on land, able to breathe both air and water, and because the mystical, water-bending martial arts isn't enough, each fishman resembles a marine animal, giving them further advantages and natural weapons, such as the smelt fishman being able to spit water like a gun. I could have sworn he was supposed to be an archer fish. The octopus fishman having 4 extra arms, the ability to ink, and I believe having functional suction cups. This guy having those elbow fin things. Those are more useful than you might think. And the saw shark fishman having razor sharp teeth that regrow almost instantaneously, as well as his steel-like saw nose. That's just about all we learn about them at this point, so I'll come back to them in a bit to make the spoiler avoidance a little easier. Now time for the race that I was trying to segue to before. Lots of big One Piece characters. Many people believe that that must be because of giant blood. Although 8.8 meters is very tall, Oda has stated that the shortest, presumably adult, giant is 12 meters, or 39 feet tall. With the shortest giant we've actually seen in the story being 12.5 meters, or 41 feet tall. I'll just go over some traits of giants pretty quickly. Big, strong, thanks to being big, can be pretty loud on account of being very big. Back, joint, and heart problems, maybe with a heavy sprinkling of asthma and allergies. Okay, so maybe those ones after loud were just me projecting. What do you want? They're pretty much just very big humans, most of whom are Norse with a Prince Loki, presumably a King Othin, and are from the warrior land of Elbaf, which is fable backwards, by the way. Usopp's fable, if you will. Now going up. The Sky Races. You've got the Skypeans, the Shandians, and the Birkins. All 3 winged, although it would seem they are not functional wings, just kind of decoration. The Skypeans and Shandians have upturned wings without an obvious bend, while the Birkins' wings are larger with an apparent elbow pointing the tips downward. There are some slight differences between the Skypean and Shandian wings, but the more distinct feature seems to be the antennae-like growths on the Skypeans' heads. I don't think that's just a hairdo for reasons I'll mention in a bit. Anyways, the Skypeans are generally depicted as angelic, while the theme of the Shandians is Native American, complete with, "That's some nice land you got there, I'll be taking that." After being launched into the sky with most of their island, they literally couldn't move because of the thin air. I guess that's kind of like the pox blankets. Yikes. People are horrible. Now for a little bit of a lore spoiler for the end of Skypiea, feel free to skip ahead. The pure Birkin bloodline may be on its last set of individuals as a certain Zappy Boy decided to wipe out his entire homeland before invading Skypiea, and I believe the only ones he brought with him were men. Oh, and whatever those goat people were, I completely forgot about them until I started thinking about Satori and his brothers. I guess that's another race? But if Satori was really their brothers, I don't know. It's weird. They're weird. They even bleat. Although there may have been other survivors because we do meet someone down below with wings very much like those of the Birkins. I'm going to go ahead and spoiler a level deeper now, at least for those of you manga readers who haven't made it to the cover story that shows what happens with Eneru. It hasn't been animated yet and probably won't be until it's immediately relevant, so it's probably fine regardless, but if you're reading the manga, it might be a nice little, ooh, that's interesting. It turns out that all 3 sky races were actually a technologically advanced race from the moon, and there were many other moon races, including this tall-headed guy. Wild. And the way we found out about the sky races being from the moon is we found an ancient, technologically advanced civilization's ruins on the moon, with murals depicting the 3 sky races. See those antenna things? I don't think that would have lasted as a fashion trend through the migration to the Earth and forgetting everything about their history. Seems like a weird thing to come cycling back around if you don't even remember where you came from, that you literally came from the moon. So I think those are physical antenna things. Coming back down to the normalcy, we see another giant race known as Ancient Giants, although in zombie form. No, unlike Zoro, I did not forget about Kokoro. I'll be back to her soon enough. But the Ancient Giants were enormous giants with strange sort of bull-like curved horns. And when I say enormous, I mean they dwarf giants completely. And the one that we saw there, we have reason to believe, was actually quite small. Or there was an even larger form of ancient order giants that were much more massive still. Just to put into perspective how large and powerful these ancient giants were, the one we saw in zombie form was known as the Continent Puller, with legends being that he moved continents around, just dragging them around like a cart or something. Maybe a wheelbarrow. Pretty big. Moving on to Sabaody, we get introduced to several races thanks to the slave auction house. Hooray! But we learn little about any of the new races but 2. First, let's go with the Merfolk, including spoilers about what we learn in Fishman Island. Pretty much everything I said about fishmen applies here, except rather than legs, they have a fin. Do I really need to explain that? And as such, having a fin instead of legs, they can't walk. I guess I really gotta be thorough, huh? But, to compensate, they are even better swimmers. Incredibly fast. As you'd probably expect, being clearly superior to humans in every way, both them and the fishmen, they were, of course, enslaved. Not only treated as an inferior race, but legally classified as fish until the last decade or so. Not fish-like, fish. Like beavers and capybaras in our world. Yeah, look it up. Fun fact. But yeah, you could presumably legally kill and eat a fishman or mermaid. It just goes to show that you don't need to be weaker to be oppressed, if the oppressor is devious enough or has a big enough whip. We don't know which is the case here. Probably a little bit of column A, column B. Anyways, back to less dark. I don't really get why fishmen and merfolk are considered by most to be different races. The type of fishman or merfolk that is born can apparently be inherited from anyone in your lineage. You could have a flying fish merman and a puffer fish mermaid, have a kid that's a giant squid fishman. So, not just merman, mermaid, and fishman, but also flying fish, puffer fish, and giant squid. Yeah. Speaking of genetics though, I believe this is the only race with a confirmed 2nd generation hybrid, that being Chimney, who is 1/4 mermaid. I imagine they have settlements all over the sea, but the only one we know of is Fishman Island, where their king, King Neptune, lives. Now, backtracking slightly to the Long-Arm tribe. They have long arms. But that's not all. They have long arms because they have an extra joint. Okay, that's about all. They typically have a Chinese motif, especially in their clothing. They might also have an accent, but I watch subbed, and Apu's accent is "Guy, I never want to make another sound again." They're from Kenzan Island. It's got whirlpools. So deep. I waited for the Long-Arm tribe so I could then just add the Long-Leg tribe with them. They have long legs. Why? Of course it's not because they have an extra joint. That's racist. They just have long legs, making them, pretty tall. We apparently don't know where their homeland is, but if it's not Kenzan Island, I bet it's pretty close considering the hostile relations that have persisted for over 1,000 years. I feel like you need to be pretty close to be angry at someone for that long without internet or something, They like to keep their legs as exposed as they can get away with and often have elaborate tattoos and rings, like wrapping around the leg, not piercing them. That would kind of be awful. You know what? I'll also include the Snakeneck Tribe here, because they were mentioned in the auction house as well, and I don't really remember anything special about them, and I genuinely thought that they were called the Longneck Tribe until now. But you guessed it. Long necks, tattoos and ring neckband things, typically slender bodies, that's all we know. We've never seen a pureblood, but Mamma Mia sure likes her some long neck. Had 7 of them. Although there were, quadruplets and twins. I wonder if their dads could breathe. Anyways, on to Greenbit. On Greenbit, you'll find the Tontattas, or Dwarves. They aren't the diggity-hole kind of dwarves, though. Think gnomes or the Lilliputians from Gulliver's Travels, although I think most people like the One Piece version of the restrained human scene a little bit more for a couple reasons. They're small enough to fit in a normal person's palm, are exceptionally strong for their size, have bushy paintbrush-like tails, and are exceptional gardeners, growing the plants that give Greenbit its name. To many on the neighboring Dressrosa, they are more of an urban legend, kind of myth, folktale. But they do exist, and they are there, hiding away like Smurfs. Moving on to Zoe, we have the Minks, finally learning what Beppo and Peckhams really are. Yep. They're furries, and I'm gonna make this quick before I get any rumors started. There doesn't seem to be a direct genetic tie to what determines the animal their offspring will be, unless it's like the Merfolk and it can basically come from any of their ancestors. Meaning at this point it would pretty much be able to be anything because that's how time and genetics and propagation through the gene pool works. They live on a giant elephant, have electrical powers apparently stemming from the static electricity in their fur, and when the light of the full moon hits their eyes, like a big pizza pie, it transforms them into a powerful form known as Sulong. That takes a great deal of training to control. They greet each other by saying "Garchu," which apparently is Nepalese for "I love you," while nuzzling, nibbling on, or licking the recipient. And like I said, they're furries. But before going on to the big one we learned in Totland, I thought I should mention the Kinkobito. They look like this. That's all we know. It was just in one of Cheeseman's books on display like a zoo exhibit, except magically nailed to a page rather than walking around in a cage. Look, it rhymes. The big one I mentioned us learning about in Totland was the Third Eye Tribe. We've never actually seen a confirmed pureblood Third Eye Tribe member, and putting the half-human we met looks like a human with a third eye. They can apparently unlock the ability to hear the voice of all things and read poneglyphs, which are these kind of like secret cube things that have things that the world government might not want you to know about, and kind of important for finding the One Piece. But they're kind of like indestructible or something, so being able to read those is kind of a big no-no. That would explain why they're so rare though. There is also a pretty new theory that we have actually seen other Third Eye Tribe members. The people with the really tall foreheads that apparently grow taller as they experience more hardship, potentially also originating from the moon. There's this dude, ninja shades, and maybe that guy. But his is probably something else. Finally, even rarer than the Third Eye Tribe and even more overpowered than the Fishmen and Merfolk, we get a big lore spoiler for the end of Onigashima. Lunarians. Yep, more moon stuff. I've got a feeling the moon's gonna be pretty important. They have wings like the Skypians, except theirs are fully functional. Or should I say, his wings are fully functional. We are led to believe that Albert is the last of his race. Originally living on the Red Line, but probably from the moon, before being displaced by the world government and capable of surviving any environment, except apparently an environment with bubble men and their servants hunting you down somehow. They may have died off some other way, but the impression I got was that the world nobles somehow managed to hunt them down and take them out. They have 2 states of being, realistically. One in which they have a flame on their back, and one without. While the flame is burning, they are practically invulnerable, but they get an extreme speed boost when they extinguish it. It seems like they can ignite and extinguish this flame at will, and Albert at least can not only ignite flames elsewhere on his body, but can also control them with seemingly more proficiency than we've even seen with the flame fruit. Just a natural ability. Now for some honorable mentions. First, there were some named hybrids. Wotan are the half-fishmen, half-giants, and long-limb humans are a cross between the long-leg tribe and long-arm tribe. More importantly though, there are also other sapient creatures. The big ones, pun not originally intended, but I think it's pretty good, are the huge ancient sea kings that can speak, but only are heard by Poseidon and those who can hear the voice of all things, as well as Zunisha, the giant elephant that carries Zoe, who also, similarly, can only be heard by the Kozuki clan, and again, those who can hear the voice of all things. But there are others. For instance, hiking bears walk around on two legs using what appears to be a pickaxe as a cane and bowing to people it passes. It'll even make you kneel in seiza for an extended period if you don't bow back as punishment. That's completely sapient. That's just a person right there. But I've never really considered them to be, another race, and I don't think anyone else has. I mean, maybe some people. I'm not gonna say anyone. There's a lot of people that read this story, so probably some. But I don't think it's a real, thing that people think about. And there's just all sorts of sapient creatures, some of which can communicate. It's just most people can't hear their communications. I don't get it. Anyways, that's the end of the video. I'm tired. I want to go to sleep. But I can't. I gotta edit this still and upload it soon. I gotta do it quick. It's probably gonna be kind of rough editing, and sorry.